right, race fans, Ryan Aho here, bringing you the One to Go show with our, of course, co-host of the show, the one and only Bert Lehman. Bert, how you doing, man?
I'm doing good. Yourself?
Man, I'm happier than a puppy wagging two tails, so I'm doing good. Life is good. We're getting to that time of the year. The season's closing down. We're getting to the holiday season, right? Should have our Christmas hats on. We don't have those. Fail on our part, right? But, hey, we're into episode 59, just about ready to click the odometer one more time and get to 60 next week. But, man, I tell you, it's been a hell of a lot of fun. You know, I like talking racing. We do that a lot more than our other halves probably want us to do, but it keeps us out of trouble. So it's been a heck of a lot of fun. And, you know, before we get into the show, of course, you know, hey, there's still time. There's still time. Christmas is coming. But, ladies, if you have not bought that significant other a gift yet, get a hold of Frank. That's Frank Zuli Race Engines. Go ahead, buy him an engine. I don't know that he can have it done for Christmas, but you can get a picture of an engine, put it stocking stuff or whatever you want to do. He'll be really happy. I mean, get him an engine. I mean, if you really love your significant other, give Frank a call. He'll help you out. And just tell him Ryan said to give him a Christmas deal. So maybe he'll give you a little bit of a cut on that. I don't know. But I talked to a lot of drivers. And I've been talking to more and more drivers, Bert, that have this stuff. I didn't realize so many people had it. I mean, you know, you talk to Parker Anderson and some of them guys. I mean, there's a lot of folks running them engines, very happy with them. And, you know, they're kind of the engine to beat, so to speak, in the WISSOTA Street Stock class. So, you know, they build everything, but, you know, that's kind of the key. So let's get into, I guess, a week in review. We don't have 17 races like we do in the middle of the summer, but there was a couple races. And we'll start out with some late model racing, Bert. And I know that you had an opportunity to jump online there and catch a little racing action. You know, what did you see here this weekend?
Yeah, I had Livonia Speedway in Georgia was night 3 of the Dryden's Extreme Dirt Car Series, and it had you must just love this race because it had everything that you love: dry track, daytime racing, and there's a third thing, but now I can't remember the third thing that you love.
Well, there was some carnage. There was a little torque equipment in it, right? A little bit of drama.
Yeah, daytime racing, and Michael Brown won the race. I believe he started in at least the first 2 rows, somewhere in there. He ran second most of the race, and then got by for the lead. I don't know, it's probably with like 10 laps to go or so. But I mean, honestly, all in all, it wasn't too exciting. I guess Strickler. Well, I saw him hit the wall in the feature, and apparently that was his second time hitting the wall, according to the announcer.
The high side tickler was doing a hell of a lot more than tickling the high side, right? He was absolutely shredding it, and yeah, both times in 3 and 4, he just parked it in the fence. In the heat race, he ripped the whole deck tin spoiler, ripped it all off, and I think he was running second when he did it. And then he had to bring out the backup car, right? And he completely shredded another car. He kind of got up into the top 10 there. And what's interesting, he was the point leader going into this deal, right? So he was the point leader in the Extreme Dirt Car Series. So the winner was Downtown Michael Brown. The big loser in that one, the high side tickler Kyle Strickler. So, yeah, you can jump on dirt, catch that. I mean, it was, yeah, I think he wants that night back. But, you know, here's the deal. The top was so dirty, right? And nobody else shredded the wall like he did. So, I mean, you can't use that as an excuse. I mean, clearly he overdrove the car, and, you know, the guy can flat out wheel, so I'm not going to tell him how to race. Dude, I am to stay off the wall. Come on, kill him, right? Okay. But the fact of the matter is, it's really dirty up there. And you look at the track, and I watched the feature, and it was mostly dry, but it wasn't really all dry. There was a big tack strip, probably half a car wide, maybe even a little wider than that, on the bottom of both corners. And what happened is, you know, we talked about this in earlier shows. Drivers are going to do what? They're going to sniff out traction, right? They're going to be sniffing out traction. Well, when you get a big tack strip around the bottom, and then it's dry through the middle, right? And then the top's all marbly. Where's everybody going to go? They're going to go right to the tires. It's going to be one-lane racing. Is there an alternative to that? Drivers complain, and I was one of them, right? We complain. We're like, oh, we hate them big, stupid Ute tires. Hate them. All they do is wreck cars. But in a situation like that, Bert, have you seen where racetracks maybe got one lane on the tires, they take those big tires, and then they push them out on the tack strip, so the whole rest of the track is even then? And I've seen a few places do that. Do they do that out in eastern Wisconsin at all?
No, they don't do that out in eastern Wisconsin. But some tracks do have. Well, I should take that back. I mean, some tracks in eastern Wisconsin, they do have tires that they can move around. It's more so entering the corner, but most of the tires within the corner itself are pretty much where they are. But I have seen, like, 141 Speedway has tires that are completely movable. They can kind of adjust where they want to put them. And I have seen them use that for instances like that to try to make it more even racing.
Now, drivers, before you blow up my text messages and my messenger and all that, I'm going to be straight up, okay? Looking at it from a fan's perspective, on a promoter perspective, if you get a one-lane tack strip on the bottom that's a half a car wide and everybody's fighting for that same real estate, I am 100% an advocate for taking those Ute tires and putting them on the traction strip and making the whole rest of the track even. Now, drivers are going to be like, oh, they tear up equipment. You rip your left front off, it's $1,000 and things are stupid. Do you know why that happens? Because if there's a tack strip on the bottom and that's the only place people can race, well, of course you're ripping stuff off because everybody's fighting for that one spot. If you cover up that one spot and make the whole rest of the track even, you won't even know the tires are there because you'll be able to run the bottom, the middle, and the top. You'll be able to run all over the racetrack instead of everybody fighting for that one little tiny strip of traction. It'll actually save you money by doing that. And I think it's a viable tool. There is nothing worse, in my opinion, except rubber. Rubber's worse. Okay, rubber is worse. But if you take rubber out of the equation, a one-lane train on the tires is the most excruciatingly boring. It's horrible. There ain't nobody in the stands that likes it. There's nobody on the racetrack other than the leader that likes it. It's terrible. Nobody wants to watch that. Nobody wants to be part of it. If it's going to be one lane, bang the cushion, at least it's exciting, right? We don't want one lane anything. Optimally, we want 3 lanes. I get it. But I think in an instant like that, watching that race, the first thing that went through my mind is, man, they should have pushed them tires out. Now, don't do it during the race. I've had that happen to me where I passed the guy and I actually started 12th and I got to second. I diamonded in. I drove off the bottom. I took the lead. Yellow comes out. I went back to second because you had to go back a lap. I go out there and drive around the parade lap, and they're pushing the tires out on the traction strip in the middle of the race. I'm like, what the hell is that? I was so mad. So if you do that, number one, do it before the race and let everybody know that you're going to do it. Say, we're getting rid of this one lane crap so you guys can race. And then you might have to go miss middle to top and kind of do some stuff to the track. But I think a good track prep crew can get creative on how to do them to create some better racing. Now, another thing that was interesting in that show, Bert, is second place in points guy, Benji Hicks, right? Now, keep in mind, this series is only 6 shows, and it's kind of spread out over the next couple months here. So it's a 6-show series, and I think it's $15,000 to win the championship in this deal. It pays back pretty good. And Benji Hicks, second in points, no-show. Overton was 7th, no-show. What's your thoughts on these mini-series like this, and you can't even get people following them? I mean, what's your thoughts?
Well, I mean, I don't know the exact reason why they didn't show, but I mean, part of it could be, maybe they want some off season. I mean, the way the schedules are now, there really is no off season. So maybe they just wanted some time to regroup and get ready for 2021 race season, because that's only a few weeks away. I mean, depending on where you're going to be racing. And another reason maybe, and I thought of this as I was watching the feature, is the racing just isn't very good. I mean, I'm sorry, but all the races in this series are in the daytime, at least everyone that I've seen. And it just, we've had this discussion several times. Daytime racing is not conducive for good side-by-side, good passing racing. I mean, maybe part of the issue with Strickler was, I mean, he knew he was second in point, or no, he was leading in points, and he wanted to get to the front, but the outside really wasn't conducive, but he was trying to make something happen. And maybe,
he's on the wheel. Yeah, he's on the wheel. There ain't no doubt. He's a high side hustler for sure.
Some of these other drivers are thinking, it's so close to the end of the year, 2021's about to start. Let's just save our equipment and, get ready for a new year. I mean, I'm just guessing on my part, but
it's kind of the same thing in the summer, right? I mean, you take the WISSOTA Late Model Challenge Series, and I'm excited for 2021. I really am, because I just got done talking to a few people, and they said their plans is to follow the Challenge Series. I'm excited about that because I believe, and I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think in 2019, they had a scheduling conflict at the end of the year that kind of changed the numbers a little bit. There might have been a couple more that would have followed, but I think they only had 5 or 6 guys that followed the whole series. And it's like, what is it, what is it that draws people to it, right? Because I mean, everybody wants more money. I get it. It'd be great if they could be $5,000 to win, $500 to start. You'd probably have more people following it, but the tracks would all go broke. So that's a tough deal, right? But I mean, they paid better than a regular night. I mean, they're $2,000 to win, $200 to start for most of them. But it kills me because I know, people like Dirt Kings, people that run the Challenge Series, people that have the Extreme Dirt Car Series. They put together these little series. You take the Hell Tour, right? They didn't have a lot of people that ran every show of the Hell Tour. You take the Mars Series. You have all these series. In the series promoters, they're simply doing this because they love racing. They're not getting rich doing it. I mean, there's a lot of time and effort putting this on. They're not getting rich. They want to put together a cool little series for the drivers to get more people to follow it and just more entertainment. And I feel bad for some of the people that run the series because it's like, I don't know what the golden ticket is. I don't know what the answer is to attract more drivers to that. I really don't know. I don't feel like it's just money. I really don't. I feel like maybe scheduling stuff. There's so many variables there. And, this deal here, it kind of sucks because it's not like they're competing against other tracks,
right.
Like with this Extreme Dirt Car Series. At least in the Challenge Series stuff, you're like, okay, I get it because some of these guys want to stay home and race. I get it. But here, there's not racing against nothing. So, drivers, specifically late model drivers, but any driver in any class that has a series, shoot out in the comments. Shoot us a message. Let us know, what would it take you to follow a series? If we had an 8, 10, 12, 14 race series that paid pretty decent money, whether it's the Advantage RV Mod Tour, the Dirt Kings, the Tri-State Series, the Challenge Series, the Super Stock Series, the Steffes Street Stock Series, all these different series, what would it take for you to follow those series? Because all of them want more people participating, because that's going to do 2 things. That's going to bring more value to the series, right? So if a series comes into town, any one of those series that I mentioned, and they have 25 drivers that are following this series, they can sell that to the track and say, look, we got a ton of people following this deal. Like, we're bringing 25 of our own cars plus whatever you have. This can be a hell of a show. Well, guess what? Now the promoters are more inclined to be like, well, heck yeah, let's do it. They're willing to pay more money because more drivers creates more fans. Everything kind of goes full circle. But we need to know, what is it that would get you to come to these shows? So I'm curious to hear that, Bert. I'm going to be talking to a lot of drivers over the winter to try to kind of figure that out, because we have some plans and some things going on for 2021 that I just want to know how that works. I know what it took for me, but everybody's different. Now, I would be remiss if we didn't talk a little sprint car racing. My buddy Keith, not necessarily sprint cars, midgets, right? But I didn't even know there was anything going on. So tip of the hat right here to our sprint car expert. And he really, what he showed me is, hey, Kyle Larson got another one, right? And he's keeping an eye on Young Money. But I didn't get to see any video. I know there was video footage. Carolina Midget Showdown, Millbridge Speedway, Salisbury, North Carolina. Did you get a chance to look at any of the stats? Did you do much digging on that? Did you see much what happened there?
I didn't do a lot. I didn't see much for stats other than Kyle Larson got what was it, victory number 46, was it? And now you had mentioned to me that you think that that's his final event for 2020.
Yeah, it sounds like that's it because there's only a couple weekends left. I mean, from what I understand, this is from Keith. Keith was looking that up on his website. He kind of feels like that's going to be his last show. So 46th win in 93 tries, 4 different classes, 49% win percentage. No, Bert, we're doing like this late model stats, putting together this top 25, and we're looking at people that have 50 to 60% in the top 5. And we're like, that's pretty good, right? He's got 49% winning. That's incredible, right? Now, if you only raced 4 shows and you won 2, probably not quite of a big deal. But when you win 46 and 93, he's in the conversation for driver of the year for sure. And he should have, legitimately should have had 47 because night number 1, he rolled on lap 1, tipped it over lap 1. And he came from last to second. Actually, I shouldn't say night 1. They changed it because literally a couple days before the event, they kind of put restrictions on everything, and they were told they had to go pay-per-view only, like literally just a handful of days before the event. So they kind of condensed everything into one race. So in feature number 1, he flipped it on lap 1. Chase Briscoe won. So isn't he going to drive for Smoke? Is he going to drive for Stewart, Chase Briscoe?
Yes, I believe so.
Yeah, so he won. Kyle Larson last to second, and another NASCAR guy, Chase Elliott. Never heard of him before, have you?
No,
Yep.
I
Yeah,
haven't.
he got third. And then in feature 2, Kyle Larson won. Now, Cameron McIntosh, I don't know that guy. He got second, Chase Briscoe third, and then Chase Elliott got fourth. So Chase Elliott, he's running pretty good. He's kind of trying to he's sharpening his pencil for the Chili Bowl here. So at first I'm like, it's pretty cool, a NASCAR guy jumping in, but he's getting some laps in that thing, so he can be kind of fun to watch. He's another young gun that gets up on the wheels. So Kyle Larson, 46 and 93, hell of a season for him. Anything you want to add there on Young Money?
Well, I want to add about Chase Elliott, actually. Okay. I didn't realize that, do you know what kind of dirt experience he has? Or is he just getting behind the wheel on dirt for the first time? I didn't realize he was placing that well so soon.
Yeah, I really don't have an answer to that. That's something we're gonna have to do a little research on. We're gonna have to check that out because I'm pretty impressed just hopping in. You win the Cup championship, you're probably okay. You're probably at least above average, right? So he knows how to drive. But jumping in one of them dicey little midget cars, and things are quick and up on the wheel. Usually not usually. They're always slide job, banging the cushion, crossovers. It's a totally different driving style completely than racing on asphalt. So I haven't watched him yet, but I will be watching the Chili Bowl. I'm pretty excited to watch him. I'm pretty impressed by what he has going on there for sure.
Well, it's impressive what he's done this offseason. He won the NASCAR championship, so he could just be sitting back enjoying the accolades. But he's out there racing. He raced in the Snowball Derby in a super late model on asphalt. Now he's racing.
He got third in that, didn't he?
Yeah, I believe so. After going through the last chance qualifying race, and he's putting together a pretty impressive local off season. And that's impressive. And regarding Young Money, unfortunately, I hope everybody enjoyed it while they could this year because he's not going to be behind the wheel of a dirt car as much next year.
It sounds like he's still going to be able to race some dirt, though. which at first I was thinking if he ran for Hendricks, he'd be done. Like I thought he was going to shut him down completely, but at least it sounds like he's going to be able to race some dirt. So that's pretty cool. I'm happy to hear that. But you're exactly right. I mean, with all the craziness that happened in 2020, one of the treats that we got was really being able to see what he can do on dirt, and it was impressive. I mean, it was really a joy and something to kind of look back on, kind of one of the big stories, I guess, of 2020. Now, let's talk about another young gun. You know, I'm going to call him Wisconsin's next big thing. All right. Now, Bert has no idea what the hell I'm talking about.
No, I don't.
This is not on the agenda. All right. Now, I was on Facebook, and Megan Adams had on there. She says, "Well, I knew that Buzzy and Blake and all them, they went down to St. Louis, and Blake Adams is Buzzy Adams and Megan's kid, right? And he's racing go-karts. He's running winged and flat carts. He went down to St. Louis 4 for 4, and I'm like, how many feature wins does he have on the year?" And Buzzy's like, well, he's got 21 in the winged, 7 in the flat cart, 28 feature wins for this kid. Now, here's the deal. So he's just a kid. He's literally a couple of years away from jumping into a V-Mod, all right? Grandpa, Tim McMahon, former WISSOTA late model national champion. Grandpa, Dave Adams, ton of wins in modifieds, late models, built engines forever. So you got racing pedigree, Dad, the human highlight reel, right? Kevin Buzzy Adams. You know, the guy's won, I don't even know how many races, but I think it's 500 or 600. It's just insane how many wins and championships and WISSOTA 100s he's won. Well, this is a third generation, right? And I'm excited to see him because I like to see the young guns come in and win and be – I like to follow that. And all of the people that I mentioned there are class acts. Like, you know, not only are them guys great race car drivers, but, like, everybody likes Tim McMahon. Like, everybody. Everybody likes Buzzy Adams. Everybody likes Dave Adams. So this kid comes in, and he's just part of that same family, that same group. And, you know, 28 feature wins. Sounds like they're done for the year. They're done with their season. But I know it's just go-karts, but it's pretty darn impressive. And I wish I would have been able to maybe watch a race or two. They shot me over a couple video clips, and you're watching them now. If you're watching this on Facebook, you're able to see a little bit of what I'm talking about. But we have a new generation of 40 now. There is some sadness in my heart on this deal because I'm a little nervous that once he's old enough to race, I feel like Buzzy's going to relegate himself to crew chief, and I don't want to see that. Like, Buzzy, like, I enjoy watching you race. Like, you're fun to watch. Now, I'm getting it. Yeah, he's probably going to be fun to watch too, but you can't quit. Nobody likes a quitter. You can't be doing that. So, Bert, keep an eye. Wisconsin's next big thing, Blake Adams over there, he's going to be fun to watch in years to come. So, let's get into a little dirt late model rules, right? We'll get past the recap stuff, and let's get into I saw a Facebook post from Austin Kirkpatrick, okay? Sounds like he's only got like 15, 18 races in like the last 3 years, but he runs really well. He's an engineer background. He built his own car, and it's deemed illegal. What did you see on that?
Well, actually, I heard part of a podcast that he was on, and he was explaining building the car, and he said his car, the way he builds his car, it's more legal than what the cars that are on the track right now. I mean, basically, he made it sound like, you know, he's making sure that his car is legal. So, I'm not an expert on what was deemed illegal on his car. I mean, was the whole car deemed illegal or just a
so here's what he did. He, instead of having lower A-frames and, you know, like a traditional car, like a traditional late model or modified where they got, well, I guess they don't have lower A-frames, they got struts or whatever, but instead of having a suspension like pretty much every other late model does in the front, he went with a straight axle wheel, which is more similar to like what they have in a sprint car. So it's kind of like a one big piece going across there, and there's a little bit more to it. But if you look at here's what's crazy, Bert. If you look at the cost of the piece, you know, of his front end geometry, it's literally like half price of everybody else's. I mean, it's ridiculous. In the history of open late model racing, and this is a quote from him, is like, I think this is like the first time in the history of open late model racing that they actually like made a rule on front suspension. It's open late model, right? I mean, they got stacked springs, they got all this crazy stuff going on. They eliminate a straight axle. There's no logic there. So it gets a person to think, and it's like, well, why? Why they do that? Well, two words come to mind: Mark Richards, right? And this seems to be kind of the ongoing opinion of everybody in the late model world is clearly Mark Richards didn't like this, so they just went ahead and they're just not going to allow it. That's kind of what happened with the droop rule, right? I mean, Mark Richards come in and he's like, well, hey, these things are getting out of hand. And guess what? Advantage Rocket, disadvantage Team Zero, because they couldn't figure that deal out. And I don't think they ever really got where they wanted to with that droop rule deal. Now, how are rules made, right? I mean, you know, it's made different in everything. I don't know how World of Outlaws does it. I don't know how Ray Cook's deal does it. I don't know how the open late models do it. Do they have one person in charge? You know, it seems to me, and I could be wrong, but I mean, you kind of pay attention to late models. I mean, it's like the only person that they listen to is Mark Richards. Are they talking to anybody else? I mean, what do you think?
I mean, I don't know if they're talking to anybody else, and you know, I don't know if this was deemed illegal because of Mark Richards, but I mean, if it was, I mean, that's part of a problem when you have a chassis maker who's also a team owner of the most successful car on a national traveling series.
And the top three cars are all Rockets, right? Him, Overton, and Owens.
Yes.
Right? So, I mean, you know, it's like somebody else gets a little technology, they get a little edge, and they're like, no, we're not going to allow that. Or, you know, he calls belly aching and lobbying and kind of politicking a little bit. And it's like, well, maybe he's just smooth. Maybe what he's selling is better than everybody else as far as like leverage and all that. I mean, there's something going on, and it's not real cool. It's kind of like politics. In my experience, Bert, you know, I've had people ask me, well, how are rules even made? My only personal experience is with WISSOTA. Okay? And as a driver, when I was driving, I always had ideas. It's like, we should allow this shouldn't be allowed, this should be changed, and all that. And what do we usually do? We jump on Facebook, or we're belly aching to our friends, or we're complaining about it, bitch, and whatever, right? But how does a rule get changed? I know in WISSOTA, if you want a rule change, if you're a driver in WISSOTA and you want a rule changed, there's just a couple simple steps. Number one, write out what you want as far as a rule change, right? Draw it all out, write it out on paper. Here's how I want the rule written, okay? That's step one. Step two is, why do you want that rule change? Is it cost? Is it safety? Technology? Better product? What is it? So you got to write down why. How is it going to affect the sport financially? Is it going to give people a performance advantage that have it over people that don't? You got to get all this stuff on paper, okay? It's not that complicated. Get it on paper. Now, there's a couple key steps, right? Just like politics, right? If you're a congressman and if you write up a law, how do you get it passed? Well, you call all the other people voting on it, right? And you make sure that you have enough votes to pass what you want to pass. It's pretty simple. When I was on the board at the Hibbing Raceway, if we wanted to make a change, we just made sure we had enough of our buddies that were in the association come to that meeting so we could vote however we wanted to. That's just the way it works, right? Same thing here. See, in WISSOTA, let's say if you're a modified guy, okay, I don't know exactly how many tracks have mods, but let's say that there's 30 tracks that have WISSOTA modifieds. Now in WISSOTA, those are the only tracks that get a vote, because if you don't have WISSOTA modifieds, you can't vote on WISSOTA modified rule. Okay, that makes sense? Now, with that said, what you have to do is you got to get this drawn on paper, and then you have to realize that the rule has to pass by a 2/3 majority vote. So that means that you have to have 21 of 30 vote your way. So what you have to do is you have to physically call or meet with each of those individual promoters, present your case, make sure they understand it, get them on your side. That way, when it comes to the annual meeting, when it comes up, you already know it's a done deal because you did your homework and you have enough people on your side to vote for it. That's how you pass a rule. That's how we got the quick changes in WISSOTA. Me and Jason Tennis, we started a drivers committee, and we contacted. We actually were going to pass it the year before until Terry Volts threw a temper tantrum about it on literally like in front of the meeting right before we voted on it. He threw a fit. But the fact of the matter is, the next year we came back, we had all of our T's crossed, our I's dotted. We talked to all the promoters. As soon as they brought it up for a vote, boom, it was overwhelming. It was a done deal. So that's how you pass a rule in WISSOTA. Now, Bert, here's what's crazy, and I know you probably don't know a lot about WISSOTA, but they have this thing called the rules freeze, okay? Now, promoters voted in good intentions. They're like, we're going to vote in a rules freeze, because a rules freeze means, hey, we're just going to kind of keep things the same over the next 3-4 years. Logically, that's what it kind of sounds like, right? We're going to freeze the rules. Do you want to know what it really means? Here's what it really means. It means that the promoters cannot present a rule. The promoters no longer have a vote during the rule freeze on rule changes, but the WISSOTA board or the tech committee, whoever it may be, they can change whatever the rule they want. They just got to call it a clarification instead of a rule change, and they've done that multiple times. So any promoter that votes to have a rules freeze does not understand that all they're doing is giving away their power to somebody else. That's all they're doing. Now, I'm gonna ask you this question, okay? You're a fan. You're on the fan side of this deal. But if I asked you who should be involved in the rules making process as a fan, you've been around racing for a long time. Who do you think should be at least involved in the rules making process?
Well, I mean, I think the drivers their input should be heard. I wouldn't say drivers should be making the rules, though. I mean, there's a distinction between providing input and actually being in a position to change rules. I've heard this told to me before. And if it's not true, I apologize. But I heard that Pete Parker once said that the worst thing you can do is have the drivers create the rules for racing.
That is true. I would agree with that statement, because we're all looking for an edge, right? Every single one. I would agree. I think that is wise. So who should be making the rules?
Well, it kind of depends on the situation. I mean, I'm thinking, if you have a number of tracks in a particular area, well, I mean, I guess this could be WISSOTA. I mean, you have a group of tracks that have joined together. I mean, you should gather input from all of the tracks as to, what they feel would be the proper rules for their divisions that are racing at their tracks, because you want rules to be uniform enough where cars can travel around and race at other facilities. I mean, obviously not on the same night, because then you're competing against each other. But I mean, you want drivers to be able to race at multiple facilities, because the hope would be that the more opportunities to race, the more drivers will build cars, and you'll have a more competitive field. So I mean, I think that promoters should provide input, drivers should provide input. But I mean, ultimately, it's not a democracy in racing. Ultimately, there has to be a dictator, and who makes the final call on what rules are, in my opinion, anyway.
And I think in a perfect world, that's how it should be. But let me tell you how WISSOTA works, right? The drivers technically do have a voice, and that's their promoters, okay? So I'm proud to say that the track that I raced at, Hibbing, the board, the meetings now there's just nobody there. But back when I was racing, there was 30, 40 people at the meetings, and they would bring in the proposed rule changes. They'd discuss it as an association, and they'd vote on it. And, they kind of did their homework. I was pretty happy with the way the system worked at Hibbing. And there's a few other tracks that really do their due diligence. But the promoters, ultimately, they get the proposed rule changes over a month prior to the annual meeting, okay? So, first of all, before that even happens, they're asked to submit in proposed rules, right? So during the season, promoters should be talking to all the drivers. And I don't mean all the drivers. If it's a guy, and no offense to anybody, but if you race 3 times a year, or if you're not the person that even knows anything about a car, you're not the person to be talking to. They got to be talking to the drivers that are at least in the know. The people that are running competitively, work on their stuff, understand what things are. I mean, the promoters know who knows what they're talking about. Talk to those folks, right? But also try to keep it a balance between people that maybe have a little extra money and people that don't. Because there's a lot of people that are pretty low budget that are really crafty, right? They're really good at what they do. And there's people that have a lot of money that are crafty, but they think different because this one's more on a budget than that one. So you got to kind of weigh that in too. So promoters during the course of the year should be proactive on talking to drivers. How do you like the tire? How do you like the shocks? What should be changed? What can be better? That conversation needs to happen, and it simply does not, okay? How it happens is you see a driver jumping on Facebook and belly aching about it, and then that's how things kind of get started. But there needs to be a conversation, an open door, and most promoters are going to be pretty good at this. I truly believe that most of the promoters want to, they want to help the drivers, but that conversation needs to happen. So they submit those proposed rule changes, okay? And then a month before the meeting, they'll get an email saying, here's the proposed rule changes. This is what we're going to be voting on. When those come out, a good promoter, right? And there's some amazing promoters out there that are just all in doing it. And there's some out there that are part of a association. They're working for free, and they're like, I ain't going to deal with this crap. I'm just barely even sick of being there. That's the problem, right? Because they started it all in, but they're just overwhelmed. So, but there needs to be a representative from each track kind of going through this process. And when the rules come out, they need to be doing their due diligence to understand, what are we actually voting on? What is the benefit? What's the pros? What's the cons? And that just simply doesn't happen, okay? So you get to the WISSOTA annual meetings, and I've been to them, and it was a complete train wreck. I mean, I'll be honest with you, like I usually left there like losing brain cells. It just is what it is, because they bring all this stuff up. The promoters aren't prepared. And then at first, the WISSOTA, I'm thinking the WISSOTA board, they're acting like a bunch of dictators, right? They want to control everything. Well, I kind of get it. I do, because some of the promoters, I feel bad for them that are the ones that really do their due diligence, because it's getting wrecked by the promoters that don't. And if you're a promoter that's not involved, if you're not going to the annual meeting, if you're not part of that process, shame on you. What the hell is wrong with you? It's one weekend out of the year. Get your ass to the meeting. They had a Zoom meeting this last week. The WISSOTA meeting was on Zoom. You would think, I mean, you can sit at home and jump on not even all the tracks jumped on a Zoom meeting. What the hell is wrong with people, right? If you're a racetrack promoter and you weren't on the meeting or didn't have a representative, like, I hope you get no cars next year. And I got friends of mine that were not on there, and I'm talking to you too. Like, I literally think that's a bunch of crap. You need to be involved. People complain about WISSOTA all day long, but yet they're not. I mean, they barely do enough to keep their own track afloat. They don't really give a crap what happens with the whole sanctioning body. Now, with that said, the promoters technically are the ones that get to vote on it, but there's been a lot of discussion. Should the board vote? Should there be a separate tech committee that votes? What does it need to be? Okay, whoever that is, they better be doing their homework and understand what the hell they're voting on, because, Bert, I've seen it with WISSOTA. I've seen it. I've actually been part of this process where it was my car, right, where board members were voting on whether to make a certain part legal or not legal. And I had them board members, right, and I don't care, like, one of them is the current president of WISSOTA, okay, right? He specifically, and I'm calling him out, he knows who he is, and I don't really give a crap, okay? He came up to me, and he says, we're going to be voting on this deal. We're going to be voting on a spindle, and which part's the spindle again? Are you shitting me? Like, seriously? He gets a vote? Why on earth would he get a vote? You don't even know what the part is, right? That pisses me off. That's a broken system. That is absolute ignorance at its finest. If you don't know what you're voting on, zip it and don't vote, period, right? If you can't take the time to educate yourself on what you're going to vote on and the pros and cons and understand what you're voting on, don't vote. See, and that's the problem. And there needs to be a committee, and it needs to be a select committee, and there needs to be possibly I think the committee needs to be somebody in the manufacturing realm, somebody in the chassis realm, somebody in the engine realm, some former drivers that are kind of in the know. But there needs to be some people on that committee that are passionate about making this better. And that just doesn't happen. It's not just WISSOTA, it's all of them. IMCA just passed a bunch of rules with their shocks and springs, and half the IMCA drivers are like, I don't even know what they're doing. What was the purpose of making this change? Just because they're bored and wanted to make a change? It's like one person says, hey, we need to do this, and they're like, oh, I got an idea, right? Brett Root's not a race car driver. The hell does he know about shocks and springs? Where does he even bring this stuff up? It don't even make sense, right? That's the problem, and it's everywhere. It's not just WISSOTA. It's World of Outlaws with their droop rule. It's IMCA with their shock and spring deal. It's all of them, and it makes absolutely no sense. And that's why there's a lot of disconnect, right, between the drivers, the promoters, and the sanctioning bodies. And that's exactly why Dirt King started, because the drivers in that area were like, this is bullshit. We're sick of this. We're sick of this tire rule. We can't groove them. This is stupid. Whatever. We'll just do our own thing. How many tracks does WISSOTA have to lose before changes are made? Because they keep losing them every single year, right? And if they lose enough, they got 2 WISSOTA late model tracks left in the entire state of Wisconsin. That's a problem, right? So there needs to be more of a conversation with everybody to make this a more of a well-oiled machine, and it's simply not, So that's my rant. I guess that's Ryan's rant of the week right there. And that is sponsored by Massengill Motorsports, because Jeffrey enticed me to say, hey, here, you got to talk about this a little bit. So Jeffrey, that one's for you. That's and he's spot on, because it's a broken system, and there's too many egos involved in all aspects. But everybody's got to get together. Communication needs to happen. Every one of us has exactly the same goal in mind. We want racing to be better, all of us. The problem is we all have our own ideas what it takes to make it better, right? But the fact is, I truly believe, whether it's the WISSOTA board, promoters, drivers, fans, everybody wants racing to be better. Everybody wants the sport to grow. Everybody wants that. But there's certain people that are way more knowledgeable in all aspects than others. Get them involved, because that's just going to help everything. So anything that you want to add to that?
Well, I guess I'll add this. Another thing that complicates things it shouldn't complicate things, but it does, is, when you have sponsors of an organization that sells certain products, and obviously, they want rules to go a certain way. So then, it's like a lobby. It is like politics, basically. You have a lobby who will lobby for certain rules because it benefits them. And, and ultimately the racer is hurt in those situations.
Well, 2 examples that come to mind right off the top is there's a carb adapter for the Midwest Modifieds that is supposed to be stamped, and you can buy the same one not stamped cheaper. Really? Okay. Stupid.
Well,
okay.
Well, that's the thing with
That's
what I hear a lot about IMCA is,
yes,
everything you have to buy has to have the IMCA stamp. You're paying for the IMCA stamp.
IMCA and WISSOTA, just so they can rub a couple more nickels together. The same thing with the bell housing in Midwest Mods. Really? Come on. So you're exactly right. That needs to not be part of the equation. If one of those sponsors is saying, we'll sponsor you, but you have to have everybody running this, I would literally just give them the middle finger and tell them to have a nice day, okay? Because it's not good for anybody. Everybody is sick of that, and but again, you're exactly right. It's lobbying. Why do you think Mark Richards gets his way all the time? He's smarter than everybody else. That's why. The guy he's all in on racing. It's his business. It's what he does. But he's also, you can call him slippery. You can call him whatever. But on the political aspect of things, right, as far as knowing who to talk to, which buttons to push, how to leverage himself, he knows how to make changes. And that's it. So if you don't like what Mark Richards is doing, don't hate the player, hate the game, right? If you can't beat him, join him, right? So that's a simple solution. Figure out what he's doing and just try to do it better. And there's enough racers out there, there's enough people involved that he can be beat at his own game for sure. And I feel bad for Austin though, because that was a pretty neat deal that he did, pretty innovative, pretty creative what he did. Cost effective. He ran well with it, and then he ran it for the whole year, and then for them at the end of the year say, you can't run that next year. It's like, what? So not a cool deal, but hey, that's going to bring us to the last lap. Okay. COVID already making waves. 2021. I mean, COVID-19 has gone into 20, and now it's going into 2021 already. What's the news there in the late model world, Bert?
Well, the Lucas Oil Series, they normally get their tours started at Golden Isle, and unfortunately, because of high COVID numbers in that area, those races have been canceled already. And but they did find a replacement track, correct?
They did. Yeah, they're heading over to Alltech. They're in North Florida. I think that's in Lake City. So Alltech is going to start out the Lucas Oil season with a practice and a doubleheader there, leading into Speed Week. So, yeah, it's Golden Isles has kind of turned into a pretty neat deal. But at least that's North Florida, so them guys don't have too far to drive anyway. So we're going to still get things started off right. And I don't know if you were on the podcast there. We got our own podcast, but I do like listening to other stuff. I was on Dirt on Dirt, and shots fired, perhaps. What do you got there in the late model world? A little bit of drama going on.
Well, first of all, I was surprised that Turbo had a podcast. Well, I mean, it's not his podcast, but he's like a co-host or something. But yeah, I mean, they had Austin Kirkpatrick on the show, and Turbo asked him a question. I mean, actually, when he asked the question, he flat out said, this is a little controversial question. Well, because Kirkpatrick made the comment earlier on what percent the car makes and what percent the driver makes in the total success of a car and a driver. And so basically Turbo asked him to name a driver that he thought had a really good car but wasn't using it to its full potential. Is that how you would phrase it?
That's exactly what he said. And then he goes, yeah, I would say that's me, he said. And he goes, I got a really good hot rod. He goes, but I've only ran, 15, 20 shows, so I don't do the car any justice. It should be a heck of a lot faster. Well, then he turned the question around and he said, who do you think?
Well, actually, first, he wouldn't answer the question, so Turbo had to throw a driver out there, and then Kirkpatrick gave his answer. But yes, Turbo said Ricky Weiss was the driver that he thought has a great car every night, but he insinuated that I took it where he was insinuating that Weiss was too conservative with things. And he made the comment, though, that he has a car where he would be winning 20 to 40 races a year. Come on, nobody wins 20 to 40 races a year. I mean, Jimmy Owens, what kind
Brandon
of year
Shepherd.
did he?
Yeah, Brandon Shepherd, that's about it, yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if it was shots fired or not, but I'm not sure why he would pick Ricky Weiss. So, I mean, they don't even race in the same touring series.
No, and I'm kind of wondering, is he like kissing ass to Scott Bloomquist here? Like going, man, he's got the best car out there. It's the fastest car on the racetrack every night. He's got the best car every night. I don't know why he doesn't win more, right? Is that kind of like kissing butt to Bloomquist, or is that shots fired? I as a driver, I'd be like, dude, like I'm gonna rip the side off your car next time. I'm gonna like the next time I pass you, because he usually does, right? Ricky Weiss, when they race against each other, Ricky Weiss usually finishes ahead of Turbo. It just is what it is. So I think Ricky Weiss maybe owes him like rip the side off his car at least once. because Turbo's a slide job machine. Ricky's not. Ricky's a smooth momentum kind of guy. But the fact is, I mean, that's a pretty tough deal. And he said there's going to be some hurt feelings. I get it. And it's just part of it. It's just part of the show or whatever. But, you know, to call somebody out, you know, dude got second in the World of Outlaw Series, right? I mean, he got third last year. He runs well. I mean, he should have won at Eldora, blew a motor up. You know, could he win more? I guarantee Ricky Weiss has more wins career in a late model than probably Tyler Erb will ever have combined, right? I mean, because he's got 5 WISSOTA late model national championships as well, you know, and so the dude knows how to win. But I kind of took it as shots fired myself, but we'll let the fans kind of decide, you know, what they think. They can jump onto the going dirt on dirt underneath the podcast there, and I think, what is it, Suave Talk or whatever I think it is.
Yeah.
And I think episode 15 or whatever. You see the one with Austin Kirkpatrick. You can listen to it and kind of decide for yourself what he said. But, yeah, I already talked about the WISSOTA annual meeting. That happened this weekend.
Hold on.
Go ahead.
I want to bring up one other thing.
All right.
About
all
that.
right.
I want to call Tyler Erb out on something.
Ah.
They were talking about the Bristol race, the dirt races. He knew nothing about that. Did you hear that?
I did. It's like, is this kid an idiot? Well, yeah, I think he is an idiot. I mean, really? I mean, would you live under a rock? Like, seriously, everybody knows. How could he not know about that? Yeah, I mean, I'm completely baffled by that myself. Now, you know, unless the only thing I can figure is because it kind of all got announced within a week of each other. Sometimes we do our podcast and it's 3 days or so sometimes before we post it because we got to do editing, we got to do some stuff.
Okay,
so
yeah.
Maybe that announcement came out and then like literally they did the podcast the next day, or you know, maybe it was just such a short deal where it didn't come out. So there might have been that in there. That's the only
possibly.
Yeah.
But
so
that struck me when I heard that. It's like, dude,
you race in
the top division in the country, and you don't know Bristol's going to be covered with dirt.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, like I said, the WISSOTA annual meeting happened this weekend. I'm disappointed that not all the promoters were on there. I just think that's I think that's distasteful. I mean, does WISSOTA need to have some improvements? It sure does. Did I call out the president? I did, right? You know, hey, no harm, no foul. It's years ago. It is what it is. It pissed me off at the time. It really did. But that's just a broken system, really, is what that is. But again, everybody that's on the WISSOTA board, whether we agree with what they do or don't, I mean, we're not going to agree with, everything anybody does. It's just part of life, right? But I believe they're all there because they want to make racing better. It's a thankless job. I don't think they get paid anything for being on the board, right? So you know, kudos for them putting that deal together. And at least WISSOTA has a system to where the promoters at least can have a voice. Like IMCA, they got like their 3 or 4 people, and that's it. It's like they send out the deal to the tracks and say, here's what it is. The tracks don't get a vote at all. At least WISSOTA has a system to where if you're a proactive promoter, get involved, right? And have that voice and be at the meetings and be involved and be communicating. And that's kind of the broken system, though, is most of the promoters don't take an active role in that. And, you know, I get it, you know, because especially board run tracks, like I said, Bert, I mean, they're doing it all for free. There's a lot of time into putting a season together. So, you know, there's just one more thing that they're going to do for free. But, you know, if you're taking that role, that's part of it. You know, if you want to be, that's just part of it, in my opinion. Now, again, I think that if you're a track, you know, that maybe was on there, you should either get a reward, or if you're a track that wasn't, you should get your finger slapped. I mean, you got to have some kind of involvement. It's one weekend out of the year. It might even just been one day. I don't know if it was a 2-day deal. I feel like it was just one day. But no real changes. I know they talked about the Challenge Series, having a couple struggles with that because right now the way that works is the executive director of WISSOTA not only kind of runs a lot of the organization, but he also does the Challenge Series. So that's like 2 completely different jobs. I personally think that they need to hire somebody passionate about making that deal happen and just kind of split that up where the executive director can focus on running WISSOTA and then hire somebody specifically different to run the Challenge Series. I think that would be best case scenario. Doesn't sound like that's going to happen for 2021. But no real changes. Just COVID has everything messed up right now, so there's a lot of uncertainty going in. But I know a lot of tracks are kind of guns blazing with the schedules, getting ready for 2021, and there's a lot of activity happening. Now, we can't go a whole show, Bert, without giving a little love to our late model expert, Jeff. Okay, wasn't a lot of late model stuff going on, right? But he did shoot me a picture, and did you happen to see the casket that
I did?
Yeah, JT Conley. So it was a couple months ago, Jackie Boggs passed away. Sweet looking casket, like all decked. It wasn't just a pine box or cedar or whatever. It was all wrapped like a race car. And then JT Conley, bam, wrapped like a race car. I'm like, all right. So kind of morbid to talk about caskets, but I mean, let's be honest. There's a lot of people like myself, right, that racing's been pretty much my whole life. I've been involved with racing from the day I was born till now, right? My dad's been involved with racing forever. There's people like their whole existence has been in the racing world. Why not send them out that way? That's so cool. I think it's awesome. What do you think?
No, I agree. I mean, I see nothing wrong with it. Back when I worked as an editor for a newspaper, I also did some stories for the magazines that the company had, and they had a magazine called Packer Pride for Green Bay Packers. But I interviewed the owner.
I can't hear you.
I interviewed the owner of a company, and their company specialized in Packer caskets. So, you could order special caskets, with different Green Bay Packers stuff on them. So, I mean, I see nothing wrong with it if that's what the family wants, and, more power to them.
Yeah, I literally had never seen anything like that until Jackie Boggs. And then Pete actually showed a picture. There was a school bus themed one, I think, is what he sent me. So that's kind of a common deal. They're kind of doing that more and more. So I'm hoping that I live at least another, 70, 80 years or so we ain't got to worry about that. But yeah, that's a pretty cool deal. Now, doesn't seem to be a lot of racing going on over the next couple of weeks, right? There was supposed to be Gateway. That's done, right? The PRI show was supposed to happen. I think that was supposed to be this past weekend. That's out, right? So it looks like with the holiday season coming up, racing is about done. I don't really see anything else really going on. And it looks to me like the next big thing is the Lucas Oil Tulsa Shootout. And that's actually beginning December 30th. It goes through through the 2nd. In 2019, Bert, 1,397 entries.
Well, I was just going to say, Puka's already got his tickets for this, right?
I would have to think so. That's his cup of tea. I'm thinking, what they got to do is they got to take some advice down from that East Alabama Speedway. When you have that many cars, you got to do at least 7 or 8 parade laps every time there's a yellow. I jumped on their Facebook page, Bert, because they were supposed to have a show this weekend. I think they got it in one. They kind of changed some stuff up. But, oh, my. I mean, if you want some entertainment, right, go to the East Alabama Motor Speedway on Facebook and just literally read through the comments from, the last several posts. I'll be surprised if the promoter of that place literally doesn't shoot themselves. They are getting absolutely massacred for everything. It's crazy. I'm like, I feel bad. We kind of gave them a little crap because their show took 18 hours, but it sounds like they kind of got a little bit of a mess down there. But check that out. I mean, it's quite entertaining on Facebook. And I kind of read through some of that stuff because I was trying to figure out if they raced or not, but I couldn't really find an answer. I think they got to show it, but there was no results, no nothing. And it was, she got shredded. It was a bad deal. So that's what's coming up. Then, of course, getting into the beginning part of January, mid-January, you got, that's when the late model season starts down at Speed Weeks. Got the Wild West Tour and the Wild Wing Tour down in Arizona. So You know, we got a couple weeks off here next week, and I'm excited for this, Bert. I'm excited because we've been putting in, we got the power ranking show that we did all year long, or most of the year, I guess, for the late models in our region. We broke down each of those sections, right? And now we're kind of compiling some information. We got pretty much everything put together, but next week we're going to be focusing 100% on the top 25 drivers in the late models. I wanted to say WISSOTA late models, but we have the Eastern Wisconsin group, and a feeling there's going to be a couple representatives there also in the top 25. You know, so we got to include them in there. But our region, we're going to break down who the top 25 drivers are in late model racing in our area. I tell you, it's a little harder than I thought. I mean, you start weighing these against each other, it gets a little, just like Turbo said, there's probably going to be some feelings hurt. There probably is. And if you don't like where you got placed in this deal, it's 100% Bert's decision. BERTLEHMAN on Facebook. Just go ahead and shoot him a message, vent to him, you know, whatever. No, in all reality, it's a lot of fun. What I realize is that late model racing's a lot bigger than I thought around here. The problem I see with it is we can very rarely do we get representatives from all of the different sections together. And that's a goal moving forward for me. I don't know if we'll make it happen in 2021. Hopefully some people follow the challenge series, but I sure would like to see, you know, at least one event, maybe a couple events, to where we could get representatives from all those areas, race for some real money, and kind of get them all together. That would be awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, like you said, what makes this difficult is you're comparing drivers that haven't necessarily raced against each other. So it's hard to, you know, they're racing against their own competition, and you're trying to see how that correlates together. In a way, it's almost like picking the teams for the NCAA tournament, because the teams don't always play each other. So you're trying to pick teams based on competition. And I mean, that's one thing that when we did our shows that I looked at was, you know, how does the competition in one area compare to the competition in another area? Because a driver may not have as many good finishes in one area, but if the competition is tougher, you know.
And then you weigh in that all of a sudden you get one of them drivers from a certain region. They do travel over, they race a couple of them shows, and then they break, right? And it's like they get a DNF. It's like, well, there was our chance, but is it even a fair assessment? Like, you take somebody from, you know, we'll just use the NLRA region. If you took somebody out of that region and you brought them over and they raced a couple shows in Wisconsin, well, chances are they're probably not going to run as good because it's not their home turf, right? So when you take them guys there, and then maybe you take some Wisconsin drivers and you bring them there, now you have a fair assessment, but that doesn't happen very much. I would say the Sites Memorial was kind of you know, that was kind of one race, I guess, where you had a whole body of work, but there's not a lot of it. I mean, Cedar Lake is kind of the mecca of racing for late models in Wisconsin, and you had a couple South Dakota guys come over, but you don't really get a full feel, because if you're used to racing on a small turn and burn type track, you know, kind of a slower stop and go deal, then you go to a big momentum track that you're not used to, you're not going to run as good. So,
well, and in 2020, it seemed like Mississippi Thunder Speedway was a place where Eastern Wisconsin drivers raced against Western Wisconsin drivers. I mean, even though Mississippi Thunder's in the western part of the state, there is a couple of Dirt Kings races there. I know some Eastern Wisconsin drivers made the trek over there for the Essential race, which was the first race of the year when that state was technically still shut down.
And they finished. There was podium finishes from that Eastern Wisconsin group. I don't remember who it was yet. You probably remember off the top of your head, but somebody finished in the top 3 coming over from that direction. Maybe not that particular race, but one of the Dirt Kings races anyway. Yeah.
I think Justin Ritchie. I don't know. I'd have to look. I know Troy Springborn went to the Essential race and finished 10th.
Right.
It wasn't top 3, but he was 10th. But yeah, I mean, some of there's a few podium finishes in the Dirt Kings race at Mississippi Thunder.
Right. And that's kind of equal playing field because they don't typically have late models, right? So it kind of makes it broke down a little bit different. I'm kind of looking through here, but we'll figure that out later. That's for another time. But the fact of the matter is, it's a little bit more challenging than what people think because you start kind of figuring out, well, who's better, who's worse, who's, they don't race against each other. And that's where the series is coming in. How do we get all these drivers together? That as a fan, there would be nothing better than getting the top 5, 6, 7 drivers from each of those areas in one big show, or maybe 2. Get a show, or even have. Can you imagine a perfect world, Bert? Right? A perfect world would be 6 shows. If we have 6 separate regions, right? If you had one in each region, right, and have some kind of a series to get them all to go, but man, getting the drivers committed to do that would be challenging because the schedules are already full, But it would be fun. In a perfect world, that would be amazing to do. And then the following week, we got Christmas week coming up, and so that's going to be our special holiday treat to you is that show. But then following week, we're actually doing the best of 2020. We got the best moments, the storylines. We got some awards we're going to give out, right? Top local, top regional drivers. We got some neat things that we're going to do, and we're going to recognize some folks on that deal, and that's going to close out 2020. And then about that time, we'll be talking racing again because we're going to roll right into January, guns blazing. So with that said, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas because that's coming up, I guess, next week, right? And we're doing the late model show, so we ain't going to be kind of doing a deal like this. But I want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas. Hopefully you get to spend it with your family, and really enjoy that time together and remember the reason for Christmas. And, Bert, anything you want to add to close out the show?
Yeah, I just want to wish everybody a Merry Christmas also. Enjoy the time with your family. Be careful, but still enjoy your life and spend some time with your family.
Yeah, life is short. Enjoy the heck out of it for sure. So I'm Ryan. That is the one and only Bert Lehman. We're the One to Go show. And like Puka always says, go out there and be your dream. And we'll see you guys soon.